the dust like directly? Or
Yes.
okay. So can you tell us like what you had to do, like what daily life with the dust looked like?
Well, we came home from school one day, I remember, and my dad and his twin brother picked us up, and we couldn't see a thing. The dust was so bad. So my uncle put his head out of the passenger side, and my dad was driving. He put it out the driver's side just so they could keep between the ditches.
Wow.
And at home it was bad because the wind put the dust all over the windowsills, and it actually was layered.
Wow.
And you had to wear a wet cloth over your nose and mouth because you couldn't stand to breathe it in.
Yeah. So I have done some research and I saw that most people had like a sort of shelter for when the dust storms got really, really bad. Did you have one?
No, we didn't. We were just in our home.
So did you have to clean almost every day? Or did you just have to deal with it?
Oh, you had to get some of the dirt off the windowsills, but it was there right away again.
Yeah.
Were you
so
growing
you
up?
mostly lived with it.
Was this at Ella's house? Like, were you?
This was at my home place where I was born.
So where were you born?
Just down the road.
Just a mile east.
Wow.
Of here in my folks' home.
So
a home birth.
What kind of problems may your family have faced that you didn't understand at the time?
Well, I probably didn't appreciate how much damage it did to the ground and for the purpose of farming and making a living. Because sometimes that dirt was up against the fence line, in corners especially, you know.
Yeah.
So was it like a complete erosion of, I mean, that's why we had the Dust Bowl, right? Was because of conservation practices weren't put into place at that time.
That's right.
So.
And we got a lot of red dirt from Oklahoma.
It blowing in from the dust storms. And so at the time, the whole reason we even had that was because farmers had overworked their ground. And then you had environmental causes that came along with it, with the drought, and it was like a perfect storm of...
Yeah, because the dirt couldn't stay settled.
Right.
Alright, so what kind of problems did you face being like a really young kid with all these problems going on and things you had no control over?
Well, you'll think this is probably a strange answer, but I never felt I had any problems. I always felt we were blessed. It didn't seem to affect me adversely or our family. And I'm sure my parents had some struggles that didn't slide off to us.
How many, Anna asked Doris how many kids was her in her family during this time?
How many kids were in your family?
I think this makes a difference too.
I think there probably were just 5. I think the last 2 were born afterwards. So there were 5 of us. And one took care of the next one.
Yeah. So is there anything extra that you think would be important to share? Like anything you can remember, interesting facts?
You mean about the dirty 30s? I remember during that time, we did travel some, like that next summer, and went to Oklahoma because we had relatives there. So in that way, we must have had enough finances to do it. But of course, we had a place to stay when we got there. And it made you see the piles of dirt around.
How big were the piles? Like mountain, like hill size?
It just built up in the corners of pastures and fields. I feel I should share much more with you.
How old were you when all of this had taken place?
I remember myself probably being 8 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
Although it might have been 8, because at 10 I remember another incident, and I think the dust storm was before that.
What was the other incident at 10?
Our church burned down in 1935, and I was 10, which was a terrible night, and I believe the dust storms were over by then.
Was it St. John's?
Yes.
St. John's that burnt down?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And that is interesting because at that time, to get an alert, you used your phone that was hanging on the wall, and somebody dialed and kept ringing and ringing, and you knew that was some kind of tragic thing that had happened.
So did you have to wait to figure out what it was, or did you pick it up and figure?
We picked up the phone and were told right away St. John's is on fire. And actually, my mother and the four or five of us that were at home saw it through the window. We could look through the north window and see the flames.
That's huge.
It is huge.
That's
I remember
huge.
that distinctly, the most terrible memory.
Because how many? That's
5
miles. Yeah. Wow.
It was
Wow.
really big. But it was the middle of the night, and of course it would shine
Yeah.
a long ways.
Even still.
Yeah. I wonder what else you might like to know about the dust storm.
Well,
You know, you ate with it. You had it on your table.
yeah.
You had to try to get it out of your food. You felt like you were eating it.
She very well
And
might
it was
have
so
been.
dark you couldn't see. You
Mhm.
can't imagine, I don't think, how bad the dust had to be.
Yeah.
Because you could not see down the road.
What was the length of time that, like, was this months that you lived like this? Years that you felt like
No,
you?
it wasn't years. I would say it was,
It lasted about 3 years, I think.
did it?
Yeah.
To us, it didn't last 3 years. It
I
didn't
think
seem like.
Down in the worst parts, like towards the Oklahoma and the upper part of Texas.
That's where it originated.
That's where it was really
yeah.
bad.
Mhm. I would say we probably didn't deal with it for, just a year
Mm-hmm.
that I remember, but perhaps the land had to be dealt with for years before it was productive.
Mm.
Yeah, I can't imagine how long it would take to rebound, like
And to fix
geographically.
fence, you also have to fix fence.
Mm-hmm. You had to dig them out of the ground and then reposition them.
Mm-hmm.
So, could you see the dust storms coming and prepare
Yes.
for them?
Yes, you could see that. Well, the only preparation we really did was put wet cloths in the
Mhm.
windows,
Keep all the
cracks.
dust from
Yeah,
coming in.
try to keep some of it out.
Was it during the summer? Like, what time of year was it?
I think it was during the summer because it was a drought that caused it.
But I didn't know if it would be a time like this where it's still dry because it's not winter time, or if it, was spring.
Well, the only thing I can think to say is we had the windows closed, but of course we would have
Yeah.
because of the dust. And I know I was not cold in the car coming home, but I don't think it was hot. So maybe
maybe like
fall.
early fall.
Could be when it was the worst here.
What did your mom do during, like, what was her role for the family during that time? I'm assuming your dad was still trying to do what he could with livestock and
Oh, yes,
farming
they
and
dealt
stuff.
with that, and
Yeah.
she, of course, had 5 children to take care of and was probably pregnant with another one. I just remember her doing everything in the house. He didn't help in the house.
Right.
She did milk during the summer times, but I do not recall her milking during the dust storms because he would have been home during the evenings. So that tells you it wasn't harvest time when it happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or else he wouldn't be home in the evenings.
Oh.
Yeah. Do you remember your siblings ever being scared or frightened of the dust storms coming, or?
We were all scared to death on that trip home from school.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was such an anomaly to be picked up, probably, by
Well,
your...
that, first of all, but you couldn't see.
Yeah.
You absolutely could not see. And they had difficulty seeing the ditch from the window. And the dust kept swirling around. And we were all afraid we wouldn't get home, we'd end up in the ditch. And of course, you had an old Model T car.
Right. What was I going to ask you? What else I was going to ask? Well, I'm just...
Yeah.
Oh, how old were... Like, when was this in relation to some of your memories of, like, the gypsies coming in and wanting to steal your chickens and...
Well, I do remember it was not around the time because the weather always seemed to be clear and good weather.
You were probably a little bit younger, too.
I think I was probably 6 years old when the gypsies came through. And of course, that was another scared time because they demanded that you give them whatever they asked for. Or the story was they would harm you or your children. So we were afraid of them. I don't know that they would have done that. So we gave them chickens, eggs, vegetables that were laying around in the cellar until they were satisfied and they moved on to the next one. That's another time when the telephone came in handy. Because if they started way in the north or way in the south, people would keep calling and saying, the gypsies are on their way, get ready.
And I remember you saying, you told me this story once, like you sort of were told to hide.
Yes, the children were to stay out of the way.
And did you feel like frightened?
Yes, we did feel afraid because it seemed like our parents were afraid. And they dealt with them. No, the children had to stay hidden in the house. Don't appear.
Were the gypsies from another country entirely, or were they just called gypsies because they traveled?
Oh, I don't think they were from another country, another area.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know the history about them.
But they were Caucasian. They were white people.
Yes, they were white.
Okay.
And traveled on wagons.
Yeah. I just always assumed that gypsies would be, like from Lithuania, because they do have a culture, in those parts of the country. They have a gypsy culture, and I didn't know if somehow they ended up in the United States.
I don't know why I want to say that I thought they were from Mexico, but they were not dark colored. I mean, like Mexicans have a darker skin. To me, they were white.
Yeah.
But dressed in different types of clothes than we wore. Sort of flowing dresses the women had on. From what I could see, because I had to hide in the house.
Do you feel like it just, if you put all of your sequential, like the history, 6 years old and your family is trying to hold off gypsies, and then 10 years old, 4 years later, more children, and now you've also have the dust storm and like how, I mean, like as you reflect on it now, how difficult would you say your childhood was, or was that just part of farming culture and life at that time?
I never considered our life hardship.
Right.
It just, these things happened, and you dealt with them, and we always were taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
We were never starving, or always felt we didn't have any money, but we had everything we needed on the farm, because you had your beef and your pork and your chicken, and you had your vegetable garden, and they canned all the fruit that was around, so you were
always well fed.
Always well fed. And I always felt cared for. I never went to bed scared.
Yeah.
I felt like I had a wonderful childhood.
Yeah.
And part of that is faith. Because, we were really centered around church life. And did a lot of learned prayers, our evening prayers, so.
And the establishment of that community, too. When you are a part of a church family, the community that goes along with that and the support that you give one another.
This is way off of what you would want to know. When our mother died, the church women descended upon our house, cleaned it from top to bottom, and brought food, and just surrounded us with love and care. It was amazing. But at that time also, I'm getting way off subject here,
You're fine.
our mother was laid to rest in our living room where the organ and piano were in the folks' home. And that was either 2 days, surely just 2 days, and somebody always sat by the body. And that was part of the reason they prepared the house to clean it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's way off. But
No,
that
you're
just shows
fine.
what the community,
Yeah.
how we work together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think even beyond just the Dust Bowl, it's important for Anna to have a sense of it. The Dust Bowl was a moment in time, but there was a way of living that you grew up with, and all of the parts that come with that, the community of your church family, and then also the resiliency, and like you said, that was just the way life was. It wasn't like
She says it very well. She's a teacher and I a bookkeeper. That is right. I was always secure and always felt loved and having fun. And if there's 5 kids around, you're going to have fun.
Which children? Leonard, yourself, Edna,
Carl,
uh-huh,
and Willie,
okay.
who died and you didn't know.
I'd never met William. He was 13?
Yes, when he died.
And can you tell Anna what he passed away from?
There's a dispute. Leukemia or rheumatic fever.
They weren't sure which.
Well, the family seems to have a disagreement.
Oh, what do you think?
I was told by a nurse that was taking care of him in Ellsworth that he had rheumatic fever. And she said, there's nothing we can do for rheumatic fever. But I almost think someone saw the death certificate. We don't have it. I don't. That it said leukemia. So that's how come there's a
Dispute.
dispute about it.
And what caused your mother's death?
I can't pronounce it or spell it. Guillain-Barré.
Oh, okay. I think I had heard that.
And it also has another name which starts with L, but I can't tell you.
Yeah. How old was she when she passed away?
30-some.
Yeah, so Doris lost her mother at a very young age. And at that time, how many children were in the family when she passed away?
7.
Yeah. What was your family? 7 total children? And then Lawrence and Grandpa's were how many?
12.
12. I always remember one family had significantly more kids than the other.
And they had a hard life too. His mother did, because the father died young.
Oh,
and
I didn't know
She had
that.
to keep the family together, and that's hard for a woman.
I had no idea that their father had passed away. So my grandpa and Doris's husband were born and grew up in this house, correct? Is that right?
Your dad?
No, Grandpa Harold and your husband.
Yes, grew up here.
Yeah,
Upstairs.
yeah. Which I just think is cool that...
Yeah, he was born here and he died here. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are you getting bored yet?
Oh no.
Okay.
Well, I can't imagine going through all of that stuff at such a young age. Honestly.
Yeah, coming home after our mother died was very difficult. Because I was a freshman and had to come home from school.
In college, a freshman in college, correct?
No,
a freshman in high school.
It was terrible. Come home to an empty house, and then you had to deal with the family and feed them.
Mm-hmm.
And on Saturdays we did everything. And poor Edna, I always say I'm sorry. She should have rebelled, because she cleaned, and a lot of times her older sister Doris cleaned after her. And I would have said, well, clean it yourself, but she never did. Every Saturday she cleaned again. We baked bread on Saturdays. I'm getting way off subject, but that was in those days. We cleaned, we pressed clothes for church, because my mother had always pressed everybody's suits, and you had to have that all done. And washed 2 beds, sheetings every week, and then the next
Rotated.
yeah. So we had a busy Saturday, whereas nowadays, you know, you are really busy with sports and side interests, I think,
Yeah.
more. You know, the boys are always playing something. I'm sure you're always doing something.
Yeah, I'm with my friends a lot. I don't do sports.
No, but you do
Guitar
horse and
woodpecker.
guitar.
And it's just different too because on Saturdays that was your day of expected to accomplish things around the home and
That's right. That's
yeah,
when it was done.
yeah.
You know, in those days, Mondays you washed, Tuesdays you ironed, Wednesday you baked, and you just had a schedule that these German women out here thought had to be followed. I think for a while I did that, but I saw that I could, you know, figure things out when I wanted to do them myself. Can you write a story for what you heard within the contents of what she wants to know? Because I've gone sidetracked here on you.
What is your final project going to be, Anna?
I write a 5-paragraph essay and then make a poster.
Oh, you have to make a poster?
The Great Depression. Or I mean the Dust Bowl.
Yeah. Both happened at about the same time.
Yeah.
Well, find an old car
Mm-hmm.
with flaps for windows, trying to get on this road to the end of the road with men looking out on both sides.
Were you at the old school that was over here on the Westfall Road? Is that the school you were at, or what school were you at that they go and pick you up?
Here,
Oh, okay.
St. John's, and I don't even know if you know where it's at.
Oh no.
You go 1 mile west and 1 mile north.
Oh, okay.
It's just in the circle over here.
Okay. And it's still there?
Mhm.
Oh, we'll have to drive by it.
Farmer bought it.
Yeah.
Richard Walby.
Yeah.
And the school is getting paint off of it like my house. But I think they store things in there.
Yeah.
And the last time we had a reunion at the church, they painted it and cleaned it all up
Oh,
inside.
that's
so
nice.
people could go
Yeah.
look at it. Well, if you can't think of anything, I don't think I can think of anything else to share.
Do you have any other questions?
Do you want to know the highlights of
Sure.
those days?
Sure.
My dad did the shopping for the groceries, and of course we didn't have to buy very much. But the highlight when he came home, if he bought a loaf of white bread, we were so happy. But if he bought a maple stick, we were elated. And if he bought a fat Frankfurter, they used to be really fat, we were just in seventh heaven, because that was so special. You know, we had our regular diet.
So those would have been considered treats.
Very much so.
A maple stick as a candy or like a donut?
A donut.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And do you remember those fat Frankfurters?
I don't think I do.
They were fat and they were tied off at the end.
Uh-huh. Who was running the grocery store at the time?
100 marks.
Okay. And it was in Lincoln?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the procedure was, you know, to take your eggs and your cream that you had collected for the week and sell it, and then you wouldn't have to pay very much difference in groceries because they bought that and then you got your money and
Oh,
you
interesting.
bought groceries with that.
So it's almost like a barter, like a trade
Yes,
system.
I'm sure that's very foreign to you, Anna.
Yeah.
You know, that you would bring in something you know, had on the farm, cream and eggs, and then you could use that to buy your groceries. So it was,
I've researched it.
Have you?
I've heard of it and I know
Mhm.
how it works. But
yeah, that's how it works.
Definitely not how we do things today. I always think to myself, gosh, if we became a non-currency society, I have no idea what my currency would be, you know, to trade. Like,
Yeah.
what do I give that, you know, somebody can give me something in return?
You could tutor.
Yeah, well, people don't put a very high value on
No,
that.
they
almost like in To Kill a Mockingbird, one of the families doesn't have money, so they repay the lawyer with like firewood and potatoes and
Yeah.
things because they can't afford. They don't have money.
Doctors used to get paid that way here.
Yeah. 'Cause people didn't have money.
I think our doctor always got paid with money, because, you know, he had to come and deliver all those babies. I never saw chickens or potatoes leave the house.
What other highlights do you remember?
Oh, Ann will think this is corny. Our neighbor kids were our cousins. They were the twins' children's. And we would meet in the pasture, us girls, and play house. And we'd drag all our old dishes and old pans out there under the trees. And we had the best time in the dirt. And of course, the boys went and did their things and went in the water in the ditches and did gross things. So we had that family to play with, in case you think we were just us. But that was really the limit of who we played with.
Just your cousins?
Mm-hmm.
How many?
On a daily basis.
Right. How many children did Ernie have? Yeah.
They had 4.
4 kids. And then you had the 7.
Yeah.
And right next door to each other, pretty much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just right.
Right next door, yeah.
Yeah, we would just walk across.
Yeah. I remember Grandma showing me there's 3 or 4 trees in front of the house of Ella's that she said she would pretend that that was her little, like she would play house, and there was like a little crook in a tree or something that she would use as like a kitchen shelf or something like that. So I remember her sort of walking me around outside of Ella's and telling me some of the places that she would.
Oh, but I always thought that was in the pasture.
Well, I'm not saying it wasn't in the pasture. I'm just saying she was sharing her memories.
Yeah, I'm sure that, because she was with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a really fun time doing that. You know, in those days you made your own fun because you didn't have a car and you, of course, couldn't drive. I didn't learn to drive until I got married.
How old were you when you were married?
24, I think.
Hey, me and my cousins always played outside.
Did you?
Yeah, we always got sticks and built forts, and then we pretended rocks were plates. We didn't even have like toy plates. We just used all the stuff outside.
Yeah, it's nice to play and have imagination be your fun.
Now they've got all the electronic kids toys, and I'm like, I'm putting you outside.
Are you limited?
Oh no, I mean I use my phone for music and for texting my friends, but
She's pretty good
play
at it.
games.
I can never pay attention to games on my phone for that long. I'd rather read like a book or practice guitar.
That's good. Are we finished?
If you're, unless you wanted to share some more highlights, I think.
I've got a lot of information
Okay.
here.